Your business needs a content calendar. If you are going to create a blog, social posts, marketing content, you need to organize it in a calendared way. You may think that you can just wing it, but I'm here to tell you, you can't. So watch this video to learn how to make a content calendar. Subscribe to my channel to get ongoing marketing ideas, business ideas, and copywriting training for your business. I'm Joy Yule from Hire a Writer. I help people like you learn how to write better websites, write better blogs, write better emails, and write better ads. Copy is what brings people to your website. It's what gets people to buy from you. So learn how to write good copy. Writing good copy is just the first part. Obviously, if you have great copy, but you don't deliver it in an organized way to your audience, you are not going to convert new leads. So a content calendar is the structural mechanism by which you organize all of the content you create. In this video, I'm going to run through the basic concepts and categories that you need to create a good content calendar. But keep in mind, you can implement these meta ideas anywhere. So if you want to create your content calendar in Asana or Trello or Basecamp, you can do that. You can use the project management tools that you already have to create your content calendar, to execute it, to assign roles and all of that. So use the concepts in this, apply it personally to what you guys already have going. Most typically, when I work with clients, we're going to create content calendars that cover three major bodies of content: a blog, social media, or a podcast. The reason that these are different is because they have their own worlds, right? The way that you craft content for a blog, the editing process, all that's very different than what you do for a podcast. All of these three things really do need to have the structural mechanisms to make sure that you guys are accountable for the process, make sure you're monitoring the data on the other side, and that everything is streamlined. So I'm going to have visual examples of all of this on the blog. That will be in the YouTube caption. But just for now, we're going to start with the content calendar for a blog. So a content calendar for a blog can be on a spreadsheet. It can be in, like I said, broken down into tasks or anything like that. But the main categories you need are date, title, SEO outline with your H1s, H2s, SEO keywords, meta descriptions, graphics, which is going to be like your resized pictures, hero images, featured images. Keep in mind, these should have alt tags. And then your posting info. So is it posted? Who's responsible for it? When it's posted, put the date, and then afterwards have a place to add data. For your blog content calendar, you also need to organize tagging. So tagging on a blog isn't hashtagging, which is what you do on social media. Tagging on a blog is like an internal structure that tells people who are reading your blog similar content, right? So if you have a blog that does healthcare IT, you want to have things like doctor app or these different categories that you kind of write to, and then when you write a blog you use those tags, and that'll help with like suggested next content and things like that. So the tagging structure that you have for a blog can be part of your content calendar as well. And then the last thing you want to think of when you're creating your content calendar and picking these categories that you have is your workflow considerations. So first is going to be graphic creation and sharing. Who's doing it? How do you know when it's approved or ready? So these are the graphics that you're choosing for the blog. They need to be sized and labeled and all that. The second is content creation and editing. So who's checking it? How do you know when it's done? What's the editing process? How do you pass the task? The next is who's getting the tags together? Is there a system? And then who's doing the actual posting, adding the meta description, making sure it's optimized on the back end for SEO. And then the last is if cross-posting is happening. So straight from the platform. So if you have it set up in WordPress to flow into your social profiles automatically, or does that have to be done manually? Are you going to write different snippets or social posts to feature the blog? These are other aspects that can be included on your blog content calendar. I know that a lot of you are going to use social media management software. That does not replace the need to do a content calendar, okay? So you can do a content calendar later in Sprout Social, in Buffer. You can preload the content onto your different platforms and all of that. If you use that platform itself, that's fine, but you need to have the right workflow considerations in place. And for your social media content calendar, here's what you need to have for your workflow. Who is creating the copy and the graphics? Where are the copy and graphic files going? Who's doing the tag research, and where are the hashtags being recorded? What data from your social media management software is being tracked and recorded per post? Who is following up with social media posts? Who's replying to comments? Who's making sure that you didn't get spammed or anything like that? How far in advance are you planning? So there are very few social media management platforms, if you think through that workflow I just described, that are gonna accommodate that. You need to make sure that you have a rock solid system for communicating, following up. Engagement is everything in social media. So if your social media management if your social media management software isn't doing it, then you need to do it somewhere else. Just make sure you are tracking, and staying on top of your social media content. And then the third kind of content calendar is that for a podcast. Podcast work is wildly underestimated. There are millions of podcasts, and I promise you, most of them have 10 or fewer episodes because people get into a podcast and they think, I have so many ideas. Then you start producing a podcast and you realize this is so much work. The way to make podcast content management doable is to create a podcast content calendar. And here's what needs to be on it: dates, podcast title, show notes. So this is going to be the description that you put on the hosting platform. A transcript for the blog. This is going to be something that somebody probably has to rewrite. Anywhere you record a podcast, you're pretty much going to get an automatic transcript created. Rarely is that going to be coherent. There's going to be all kinds of mistakes because a bot is doing it and interpreting people's voices. So you're going to have to go in and refine and rewrite that. But if you do, you can create tons of long form text content that's great for SEO on your website. Links and embed code. That embed code is going to be going on your blog probably. A thumbnail image. Every podcast episode should have its own thumbnail. Social graphics. What are you using on social media to promote your podcast? Those need to be created and part of the content plan for each episode. A soundbite. You may be able to create a graphic version of this in your podcast hosting software. Either way, it's a really powerful way to give people tidbits of what that episode is about. Social copy with posts and hashtags. How many posts are you going to create per episode? Get a system down for doing that and then do your hashtag research. Make sure this is all in the same place. And then posting info with assignments. Who's doing what? So you can already see there's a lot of content that goes into a podcast. Every single episode, there are many, many steps, and a content calendar is the only way you're going to pull this off. You have to do it with workflow considerations in mind. Here's what they are. First, what's your lead time? Podcasts take more time than other types of collateral because you record and edit. You have multiple pieces to create before they go up. So be realistic about this because a single hitch could make you inconsistent. If you intend to post a podcast episode a week, I will tell you right now that is very ambitious and you need to have your ducks in a row. And then who's doing what? So there's a lot to create. You'll probably have separate people doing different tasks. You'll have your podcast host, graphic designer, copywriter, social media manager. A content calendar makes sure everybody's in the know about where stuff is in the workflow. And then are you having guests? There's a huge process to that kind of PR development that's going to shift your strategy. So there's a lot to it. But if you make a system, you can pull it off and have a great podcast. So, are you overwhelmed? Hopefully not. There's a lot here. There's a lot to do when it comes to creating a content calendar. Like I said, I've got tons of visual examples on my blog that show you how to make them in Google Sheets. This is a very simple way to do it. You can integrate it with your project management software. But if you sit down and make a plan for creating content, you are going to get better engagement, you're going to have a hold on what you're doing, and you're going to have consistent brand presence on all of your platforms. And I wish you the very best of luck with that. Subscribe to my channel and make sure that you don't miss a piece of my copywriting information and insight. Want to learn how to write great CTAs for your website? I can help you with that. Watch this video to learn more.